In the late 1700s in Philadelphia, a man named Richard Allen and a few friends had the audacity to pray in the whites-only section of the church. A few members of that church picked them up off their knees in mid-prayer and threw them down the church steps outside. Within a couple of weeks, the black community in that city had left the church. They were tired of being kept in the modern-day court of the Gentiles. And they bought a blacksmith shop and began holding their services there, and that is the beginning of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, or the AME, which is the oldest Protestant historic black church in this country. It sparked a series of black denominations all across America in response to running squarely into the very dividing wall that Jesus had torn down. Pastor Eric Mason, speaking of the American church, writes, "The black church only exists because the white church failed to be the church." And when I read Martin Luther King's letters from a Birmingham jail, the part that so rocked me deeply was that he is disappointed with white Christian pastors. He is sitting there in a jail cell in the fight of his life over a gospel issue. And he's finding that none are standing beside him. And I was so rocked, because he was not condemning them for coming out as white supremacists or inviting KKK members into church leadership positions or anything overtly racist. His disappointment was so much more subtle than that. It was who they ate with at the church potluck and how leadership was given and who could access it and what aspects of the gospel were emphasized and what were de-emphasized and what they were willing to sacrifice for and what they apparently weren't. See, this dividing wall, it's not exclusively a white and black thing. It's an immigrant and native thing. It's a power by gender thing. It's a division in every variety thing. And some of you surely think I'm overdoing it. Like I'm just up here making a really big deal over ancient history, and if I just stayed quiet, we could let this thing just get sorted out all on its own over the course of time. This dividing wall was not built naturally. It came up very intentionally and very unnaturally, and it only comes down with just as much unnatural intention. Jesus destroyed the barrier. That part's done. It cannot be changed. New reality, but the visible expression of that reality comes through your life and mine. His purpose was to create in himself one new humanity. The kingdom of God has invaded this world, but that kingdom, it only becomes visible through the church. And this word new in Ephesians 2, it's an interesting one because there's two different Greek words for new. There's neos, which means new in relation to time, and then there's kainos, which means new in relation to kind. And Paul uses kainos. So the iPhone 14 is neos, it's new in relation to time. It's a new version of an existing thing. But when Alexander Graham Bell placed that very first phone call, it was kainos. It was new in relation to kind, a new kind of communication. So again, to borrow from my friend Brian Loritz, this new humanity isn't a 2022 Tesla, it's the Model T. It's not a new Boeing jet, it's the Wright brothers on a beach in North Carolina. When your plane pulls up to the jet bridge, you typically think, finally, maybe for once we're going to get out of here on time. But when the Wright brothers got airborne on that beach, it was, what? People are flying? It was kainos. It was mind blown. Jesus destroyed the barrier so that people of different races, classes, cultures, and backgrounds could worship the one true God as one true family. And when the watching world gets a glimpse of that, says Ephesians, it's kainos. It's mind blown. The church is God's plan for showing the world this new kind of family, the one without a dividing wall. We did not destroy the barrier. Jesus did that. But we become the visible evidence of Jesus' victory. Heaven and earth, or heaven is invading earth because Jesus won a decisive victory that we couldn't win, but the world catches a glimpse of that victory. When you and I become visible evidence of that victory, the multi-ethnic church is mind-blowing. It is new in relation to kind. It is kainos. The homogeneous church is dismissible. It's neos. It's a new version of the same thing. So as I mull over my responsibility as a church leader in a nation with a history of race-based slavery during an era of heightened awareness over racism and injustice in our country, I just keep picturing Dr. King behind bars with that legal pad in hand, writing that letter that they ended up publishing. And I ask myself, am I one of those white pastors? One of the ones he was disappointed with? And don't get me wrong here. I think racism is disgusting. I'm adamantly opposed. But does that move me to act? Or do I just scan comments, make a virtue signaling Instagram post, and then start concocting weekend plans with a friend group that mostly looks like me, thinks like me, and has all the same access to all the same things I have? Because the sobering truth that's revealed in Galatians 2 is that Peter rebuilt the dividing wall that he opposed not by blatant, obvious racism, but just by passively living within the confines of his comfort zone. And the sobering truth for us, and I'm speaking to the ethnic and socioeconomic majority here when I say this, the sobering truth for us is that we can nod our heads in agreement, we can champion all the right stances, we can celebrate God and his multi-ethnic family, but if our expression of that vision is passive, we're rebuilding what Jesus tore down. So when was the last time that you went out of your way to notice someone different from you and then inconvenienced yourself to invite them deeper into community? Or the last time that your after church brunch or dinner plans included someone different from you? Or the last time you intentionally invited someone from your church family who is different from you into your weekend plans and it made your weekend a little bit more intentional, not a little bit more chill? And I'm honestly not asking those questions to accuse anybody. The only reason I'm asking them is because it seems to be the rhetorical questions that Paul was posing to Peter at the church potluck. You see, the sobering truth of Galatians chapter 2 is this one, that our church will never become more inclusive than your dinner table. The work of reconciliation in the church did not happen in their gathered worship. Paul is not asking for more diverse music or better statistics on the church survey. I'm sure he's super down with all of that, but he's talking to them about their dinner tables. Reconciliation happens around the table. It is not enough to have a more colorful crowd of faces on a Sunday. The appearance of diversity is not reconciliation. A more colorful crowd around a stage is only the appearance of reconciliation. But until this gets to the table, to your table and to mine, we're rebuilding what Jesus tore down.